Bonjour, I'm Cécile Lenné, and today we are talking about simplifying and comprehensifying texts. In this webinar, I will be using an article from Le Petit Journal Francophone. Le Petit Journal Francophone is a monthly publication that contains articles about current events written in comprehensible language, specifically for students at the novice high, intermediate low reading proficiency, typically your level 2 type student. So first, let's take a look at the actual article. This is an article that was submitted to me for Le Petit Journal Francophone. And so as the editor of Le Petit Journal Francophone, I'm going to run through a round of simplifications and items to comprehensify. So I'd like you to please pause the video. I'm going to move my little face out of the way and read the article before we get started. Now that you have read the article, hello, I'm back. Let's take a look at the 3 levels of simplification. So the first level of simplification is at the page level, or if you have a manuscript from an author, at the manuscript level. The second round of simplification is at the paragraph level. And then the third round of simplification is at the word or phrase level. Word or phrase level. So let's get started. First, at the page or manuscript level. When you look at this page, there are several ways that an author or an editor could help simplify the actual text. First, the spacing of paragraphs. And as you can see here, the author of the article has done a really nice job at spacing her paragraphs. So I won't do anything specific about this as an editor. Second, the number of paragraphs. So here she has about 320 words, and she has split them in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 paragraphs. And by the way, this is the title and this is the subtitle of the article. Next is the author using long or short paragraphs. As you can see here, the author has been using short paragraphs, and there's no more than 3 sentences per paragraph, so I think that's good. Fourth, narration versus dialogue. This is more when you have a manuscript. So is the page full of narration, or do you have a mix of narration and some dialogue that brings more air to the page? Obviously here, since this is a news article, there are no dialogues per se. But there are some quotes and citations here. So we'll have to take a look at those citations as well. And then finally, at the page level, the use of footnotes. And you can see that the author has used 3 footnotes so far. And as the editor, I might decide to add more footnotes. So we're going to dive in now to the paragraph level. At a glance, I can see that the author has chosen to use rather long sentences. Yes, so for example, here's a short sentence. Une des associations du collectif s'appelle Pierre de Lune. Short. But overall, in the whole article, you probably have noticed that most of the sentences are actually quite long. L'association Pierre de Lune a publié une réponse analysant en détail pourquoi cet article était offensif. That's a much longer sentence. So I'm going to have to go in and make sure that there's not too many long sentences, since this is mostly for novice high, intermediate, low. So there will be work to do on the paragraph level. Next, simple versus compound versus complex sentences. So as you can see, there are a lot of complex sentences in the paragraphs. We've said there are long sentences, but a complex sentence is a sentence like, let's see, this one. Or, le titre de l'article qui associe le collectif à un gang, ainsi que beaucoup d'autres aspects du reportage, ont perturbé les membres du collectif. So you can see that this is a complex sentence. It has the ainsi que, it has the qui, so it has 3 different phrases inside one sentence. And there are a lot of those sentences, so we're probably going to have to take a look at how to reduce the complexity of some of those sentences. The next one for the paragraph level simplification is the use of transition devices. We want to use transition devices even for novice, intermediate low, but we want to be really purposeful with the amount of transition devices that we use. So this author has used a few transition devices. Some of them are quite, I would say, basic, good, in a good way. And for novice, c'est pourquoi, that's very good. Pourquoi is a basic question word. C'est is a basic phrase. So c'est pourquoi as a transition word is very purposeful. It's very good for novice. But I can also see that the author has used transition devices that are much more advanced, like ainsi que. And we are going to be able to replace those with transition devices that are probably more appropriate for novice and intermediate low. Okay, and next we are going to dive even further to the word and phrase level. And this is really where the bulk of the work is going to happen on this particular article. So there are 2 main strategies for simplifying and comprehensifying at the word and phrase level. The first one is sheltering language. And what that means is using Super 7 and Sweet 16 verbs. So using verbs that are super useful and high frequency. That doesn't mean that's the only thing that we need to use, but we need to make sure that a lot of those verbs are used because they are the most important verbs that we use when we communicate. If you are not familiar with Sweet 16 and Super 7 verbs, please pause this webinar and click on the resources and take the time to educate yourself on those very important verbs, and then feel free to join us again. The second action that we can take to shelter language is obviously to use cognates. That's a very basic one. So we'll see if we can add more cognates. I do want to say that cognate is a very tricky, it sounds like an easy concept, but I have found out that it's actually quite tricky. What sounds or reads like a cognate to us, teachers, may actually not sound nor read like a cognate for our students. So we have to be very careful what we call a cognate. So my personal definition at this point of a cognate is a word that reads the exact same way as an English word. So parent, which in French is parent, it doesn't sound the same, so I will never call it a cognate for the ear, but for the eye, it's written the exact same way. So that's the kind of cognates that I try to use when I either write or help authors simplifying, comprehensifying their texts. And then finally, weeding out low-frequency words. I can give you an example right off the bat before we dive into this article. If you look at the title says « Un réseau de solidarité pendant le confinement ». Un réseau is a network, and this is a very low-frequency word, and it appears in the title. So it's actually signaling to the students, oh, this article is going to be difficult because in the title, there is already a word that I don't understand. So I will work to edit the title so that in the title brings confidence to the readers and they know exactly what the article is going to be about and they feel confident that they can actually read it. Now, some teachers might say that un réseau is a very important word for their classroom because social network, réseaux sociaux, is, it's something that we want to use in our classrooms when we talk about social media. And I completely agree. However, for the purpose of this article, once you've read it, you know that this article is not about social media, and therefore the word réseau, network, is not really needed for this particular article. If this was an article about social media, I would not want to remove réseau, because for the purpose of this article, réseau would be a high frequency word. I hope that makes sense. And so we'll be looking at eliminating this particular word for this particular purpose. So I told you there are two strategies at the word and phrase level to simplify and comprehensify a text. The first one was sheltering language. The second one is increasing the word and phrase frequency. So let's take a look. Consistency of phrases used. In this article, there are some phrases or topics that are important for the student to understand this article. The students needs to understand la faim, the hunger, and that's really a major one. But look at this. The author has chosen to use sometimes la faim and sometimes l'insécurité alimentaire. So hunger or food insecurity. And while those are indeed two separate concepts, for a novice, we might have an opportunity here to actually use only one phrase. So to choose la faim or to choose l'insécurité alimentaire and increase the frequency of that phrase in the article. So when I go in the article in a minute to edit it, I will be looking at either removing l'insécurité alimentaire or removing la faim and increasing the frequency of the phrase that I'm keeping. The second one is the purposeful use of idiomatic expressions. I think idiomatic expressions are really important and we should not shy away from using them, but we have to control them, obviously, and use them with a purpose. For example, the word dizaine here, dizaine de colis, dizaine is definitely an idiomatic expression. You can't really translate it in English. It's not exactly dozen. It's tens and tens of, I guess. So this is a quote. Therefore, the author kept the original native language, and what she has chosen to do is then to put that as a footnote. And I think that was a very good choice because that is very idiomatic reading. So if we decide that we have to keep an idiomatic expression in the text, then indeed putting it as a footnote is the right step. So either we weed them out or we keep them, we increase the frequency of them, and we also footnote them. Purposeful yet natural repetition. I think this article does a good job at using natural language, and that's really important. We want our students to read language that's very natural. But I think we can increase the repetition of some phrases, which is again going to go back to this consistency of phrases used. So I'm going to go and increase the frequency of la faim or l'insécurité alimentaire, because that is a very major topic in the article. So we have now established what we need to do on this article. At the page level, there won't be much work. The author has already done a really good job at spacing the paragraphs, having short paragraphs, using footnotes. At the paragraph level, we have established that there will be work to do on some sentences that are probably too complex for the level readers that we are targeting this for. And then at the word and phrase level, we have established that we have some work to do to increase the frequency of some key topics or phrases and to remove verbs and words that are not high frequency, and specifically not high frequency for this article, to try to increase the number of cognates, etc. So now I'm going to dive into the actual article and start editing. Join me. So here we are. Let's start with the title. Un réseau de solidarité pendant le confinement. I already explained during the presentation that un réseau was definitely low frequency for this article, and therefore I'm going to remove it. And instead, I'm going to create a title that contains words that are, if not cognate, at least close to cognate: solidarité, solidarity, and confinement, confinement, which has become a word that our students are now used to. So now we have solidarité pendant le confinement. I mentioned that I would have to choose between la faim or l'insécurité alimentaire, so that we focus on one phrase and we actually repeat that phrase throughout the article. So I contacted the author and asked her, are you writing about hunger or are you writing about food insecurity? I don't want to make a call without checking with the author first. And she confirmed that she was really writing about food insecurity. So that is the phrase that I want to keep. Now, some teachers are probably thinking, oh, zut, shoot. I was hoping you would keep la faim, hunger, and make that really frequent, because faim is a very good novice word. And I understand that. And you're always going to be torn between, choosing the words that your students understand and choosing the words that are appropriate for the story. This article is not about hunger. This article is really about food insecurity. So it would not be fair to choose hunger and therefore change the meaning of the article simply because the word faim is a novice word. So sorry, teachers, I'm going to choose insécurité alimentaire, food insecurity. So, un groupe d'associations travaille ensemble pour combattre l'insécurité alimentaire. So now I'm going to start replacing la faim wherever I can. Okay. All right. We said that at the paragraph level, we were going to try to make some of the sentences less complex. So here we go. La pandémie du COVID-19 a causé des difficultés pour tout le monde, partout dans le monde. So perhaps I can replace this with something that says the exact same thing, but that is more simple. So, la pandémie du COVID-19, pardon, est difficile. So, est difficile, very basic, novice, appropriate phrase. And it means the same as, à causer des difficultés. Est difficile pour tout le monde. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Again, this is the beginning of the article. We're trying to build our students' confidence that they can read this article. So I always spend some time at the beginning to make sure that it's really simple. Even if the complexity increases in the article, that's okay. But I really want to scaffold that. La pandémie du COVID-19 est difficile pour tout le monde. Et dans les communautés avec moins de ressources, l'insécurité alimentaire devient un problème de plus en plus grave. So we will probably be footnoting l'insécurité alimentaire. L'insécurité alimentaire is the main topic of this article. If students don't understand it, that's it. They're lost. They're going to be lost. So I think it's really important that we footnote this. So I'm putting it in bold so that I can come back to it later. Okay. And I'm also seeing devient, becomes. And I think, again, because this is the beginning of the article, I want to use, super 7 verbs or sweet 16 verbs, really super high frequency verbs that the students are most likely to already know. So I'm not going to take a risk with devient, and I'm just going to say est. L'insécurité alimentaire est un problème de plus en plus grave. OK. C'est pourquoi à Pantin, en Seine-Saint-Denis au nord-ouest de Paris, un groupe d'habitants et d'associations locales a formé un collectif nommé Solide 19 Pantin pour aider les gens qui ont faim. OK. So, c'est pourquoi, we already said, very good transition word, very novice appropriate. The sentence is a little long. We're establishing a lot of things in the sentence, where Pantin is, but that's okay. I think what I'm going to do here is just replace qui ont faim with pour aider les gens en situation d'insécurité alimentaire. And that way I am starting to increase the frequency of this phrase. Le collectif assure 3 distributions de nourriture par semaine depuis le début du confinement. Okay, so here the author used assure and used a footnote. And remember, I told you to try as much as possible to use the Sweet 16 verbs or the Super 7 verbs. So here I'm going to use a Super 7 and I'm simply going to change I'm going to change assure for fait. Le collectif fait 3 distributions de nourriture par semaine, and now I do not need this footnote, and I can keep the footnotes truly for phrases that are critical for the comprehension of the article. Okay, so now I have a Super 7 verb, and the sentence is now much simpler. We're now arriving to what looks like the longest paragraph of the article. This paragraph is long, but it's not too long. There's really 3 sentences, and most of it is a quote. And quotes are, always full of very native and complex language. So you have to decide if you're going to keep it or not. I think we're going to keep this. The author already said she wanted to footnote this, which I agree with because it's very idiomatic. And really, if you look at the quote, la première semaine, novice language, de confinement, cognate, nous avons distribué, distribute, there is a chance that a level 2 would understand that, something, 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 which we have now a footnote for. And here is des, which is a bit complex. Dès la deuxième, les demandes ont explosé. Demand, explosé, exploded. I'm hoping that a level 2 would have enough scaffolding here that he or she would be able to understand it, that they would be able to understand it. Okay. Moving on to the next one. Let's see. Le travail de ce collectif est à la fois efficace et important. So, à la fois is very elegant, very sophisticated, but it's really just adding words to a sentence that's going to be too much for a novice. So, I'm going to remove à la fois. Le travail de ce collectif est efficace et important. I am not losing any meaning. I'm just removing those elegant phrases that are going to be too much noise for a novice or an intermediate low. C'est un travail qui a attiré l'attention des médias. Okay. En effet, le 1er mai dernier, le magazine Paris Match a publié un reportage. I'm going to either change un reportage and say an article or footnote the word reportage. In this case, I'm going to change it to an article because it is not really the central topic of the article. It doesn't matter if it really was a reportage and now it's just an article. I think it still keeps the meaning fairly intact, and it's using a very simple word, an article. Okay, so here we have the title of the article. Okay, and then we have a bit more information about this number, 93. It's important information to understand. If you don't understand what 93 means, you won't understand the title. So I'm not going to put it in parentheses. I'm going to make that a sentence in itself. It's an important sentence. Okay. Now, remember this, we said this was definitely a very complex sentence. So we're going to try to simplify it in keeping the same meaning. Okay, we have or, which is a transition word. And I understand why the author used it here. However, I don't think it's going to change much of the meaning if I remove it. Again, for a novice, high, intermediate, low. Le titre de l'article qui associe le collectif à un gang. Okay. Ainsi que, again, too complex of a transition device. So I'm going to remove that and just keep it le titre de l'article qui associe le collectif à un gang et d'autres aspects de cet article. So I'm repeating the word article, I'm removing reportage, ont perturbé. I wonder if there would be an easier way of saying ont perturbé. Les membres du collectif. Perhaps ont choqué, shocked, would be perhaps more comprehensible than ont perturbé. So here, the sentence is still pretty long, but it's definitely not as complex as it was to begin with. Le titre de l'article, qui associe le collectif à un gang, et d'autres aspects de cet article, ont choqué les membres du collectif. Okay, next one, we have again a quote. Again, I think it was well chosen. It's an important quote because it really explains what the response, or what the reaction was when the members of the associations read this article. And so, représentation, essentialisation, mépris et cliché humiliant. I really like it. Okay. Okay, so we're arriving at the very last paragraph. So again, usually when we finish an article in the Petit Journal, we always have a question, and a reflection question for the reader. And what I'm noticing here is we have a word that shows up, voisin, and neighbors. That is an important word, and I wonder if I can increase the frequency of that word earlier so that I don't end up with a new word at the end of the article. And so perhaps already I can put it here. Connais-tu des associations dans ta communauté qui ont changé leur travail pour répondre aux besoins de leurs voisins? So now I have voisin twice. That's not enough, but it's a good start. And I wonder if earlier I can go back and put voisin so that now this word becomes an important and frequent word in the text. As I'm going back to find another place for voisin, I am noticing here that the author used assure again. And I'm going to change this with donne. Qui donne. C'est une association qui donne accès à la culture. Donne is a sweet 16, to give access. It's a really good phrase. So I'm happy that I just cut that. I hadn't cut it the first time. I am still looking for a place to put voisin. If you've seen one, good for you. Perhaps here. Yes, here it is. Pour aider leurs voisins en situation d'insécurité alimentaire. And now I will be footnoting leurs voisins. It has become a very important part of the article, and therefore it needs to be in the footnotes so that students understand it. So these are some of the simplification and comprehensifying action steps that I would take on this article. I am sure that there are more, but for the first round of edits, this is what I have decided to do. And of course, it will need to be proofread again so that I can find more opportunities to simplify and comprehensify, but without losing the richness of the text and more importantly, the meaning and the key messages of this text. Thank you for taking this webinar with me today on simplifying and comprehensifying texts. If you want to continue the conversation, you can reach me via my email or on my site, towardproficiency.com, and follow my YouTube channel. Thank you. Au revoir.